What is going on, everyone? Balguard here, and we are back for some more coverage of the Ahriman Legion 2021. This is Team France against Team Australia, and I'm fighting Vapix. Now, I'm going to be commentating on Vapix's footage because I lost my games like a dummy. So Vapix was kind enough to send this footage to me so that I can post it as well. And he uploaded it on his own channel. I do recommend you guys to go and watch it because I learned so many things about how to play such an intense game watching his video. So please go and check out his video, and well, after you check mine, of course, because he's spoiling the results. I will try not to. Okay, so Vapix is playing Khârn, Ahriman, and Alpharius, and I am playing Ahriman, Exodus, and Vulkan. So pretty similar lineups. I have Vulkan where he has Khârn, so this is one matchup that is good for me, and I'm kinda glad I'm facing him because he's also legend on the game. So yeah, without further ado, let's jump into the first game. Okay, so here it is. He decides to go first with Khârn, and I decide to pick my Vulkan. I'm like, okay, if I want to win with Vulkan, I need to win now, because later on he will be able to pick Ahriman against it, and I have no chance as a Vulkan against an Ahriman, especially an Ahriman as good as Vapix's. So yeah, I'm very happy about that. This is a very good matchup for me. Obviously, having 45 HP helps a lot, and also it's not only about the HP, it's also about the deck I use, because this is no DD Vulkan. DD has been nerfed at that point, and this is a mid-range Vulkan, so many early game troops with Survivor that are going to be able to take board control quite effectively, and I can take the hit with my Warlord to get to the board control state. Okay, so he plays Crucial Choice, and he has three options here. Priority, I'm not gonna talk about it. Skill Raider is an interesting option because he can go for killing my troops and then going face. I'm not sure how it works with the pings, but anyway, he decides not to go for it. He picks Forge Breaker. Forge Breaker is obviously excellent with Khârn, just because he has Bloodthirst, and so he can shoot twice if we go to that point in the game. Okay, just a small comment. He decided to toss away the two True Change in the beginning, and that is because he already had the Crucial Choice in hand, and also he also had Wrath, so the True Change is here to dig for the best troops, and Wrath is probably his best troops, so he already has it in hand. So True Change is that interesting. Okay, one ping goes to his face, one to my Sorka Hunter, so he decides to go for the bike. And I play supply lines. Now there are two vehicles in my deck, which are Ancient Ackley of the Dreadnought and one Hydral Anaya. Because I was thinking maybe he could open with Exodus, and if he opens with Ahriman anyway, he's doomed. I don't think I can 3-0 his Ahriman whatsoever, so I was like, okay, if you open with Ahriman, then take your win, and then we'll see. So there is one Hydral Anaya, but I was lucky enough to draw the deck clear, and this is excellent. Now I face bash into the Wrath because I don't want him to be able to do 3 damage to my thing. So yeah, here as you can see, he's wasting a lot of damage on it. Thing is, with Vulkan, he cannot go full face. He needs to put some damage with his troops, and so the Dark Clear, if he just decides to ignore it, he won't be able to pass through my front lines and my Survivor 5. So goes for that play. Now he has a 4-4, he healed that up, which is very good for him. And I don't have that much to do here, so I'm just playing my 3-3 and a 2-1. And also I had Draining Sight, yeah. So yeah, and I played the Storm Eagle, and I played it on his face, and that's a very interesting play. Why is that so? It's because what do you think I want to kill here? I want to kill the 4-4. I don't want to deal damage to Khârn because it's all about board control. So by preventing Khârn to attack, I allow the 4-4 to attack, and therefore the 4-4 is gonna lose some HP, which is very good for me. See? If I hadn't done that, he could have just attacked once, maybe a ping will have hit, maybe he would have no survivor alongside that, and that would have been painful. Okay, so here goes one swift advance. I'm fine with that. I'm still at 17, he's only at 15, and now I can put things on the board. Unfortunately, I only had this dude to play, and that was... maybe that was a mistake. It really sucked that I only had this thing to play, because I want to keep my front line for later on, for when I'm actually threatened to be killed. I know he plays the Forge Breaker, and he swings once, and I'm not entirely sure why he did that, but why not, I mean. So here I have the Fire Drakes, and I'm like, okay, I should have lethal next turn, except that I forgot, the Forge Breaker stuns troops. So it's just stunning my troops, and there you see why it's so good. And I could have attacked with that too, with a front line. That was a mistake, now that I'm thinking with that. But okay, I drew Benevolence, which is excellent. And then I put down something else on the board, I think. We'll just pass here. Oh yeah, I forgot that there are a couple up. I'm just gonna move forward a bit. Yeah, and also had Melgator and the Russian squad. So here I can stun two things, and I cannot kill him. And these stuns are very, very boring. And also I run one Sabotage in my deck. Had I drawn it, I would have won that game. But now something's bad is about to happen, as you can guess. For the Ravage City, just because it feels good. And here, and here I could have I should have attacked with a 2/4/2. I completely forgot to do that. But alright, I'm like, okay, I have a big board. He can't deal with everything, but unfortunately, he can. Despite that Ravage City. If I had attacked with my 2/4, he couldn't have done that, because he will kill too many troops, and his thing will turn into a greater demon, which he doesn't want that to happen, obviously. And now he gets a mark of Slaanesh, which is very bad for me, because that means he can take the free trade into the Fire Drake. And here I don't have anything in my hand, and that really sucks. I mean, I do have 2 last rifles, so I'm 1 off lethal. And I could have had lethal if I had simply attacked with my Warlord over this man at 2/4 at some point. And so I decided to go for the Emperor's Wrath, because okay, there are 4 Astartes in my deck, and one of them is the last front line. So a 2/4 with Drop Pod and Survivor 2 should get me out of this, because there is no cinch mark on his vehicle, so it should be good. But fortunately I don't get it, and he wins. Alright, so I'm gonna move forward a bit and straight to the Ahriman match. So here I am. Let's talk about that a bit. I am happy with that, with his Ahriman. It would have sucked if he had picked Exodus here. I've been lucky he goes for Ahriman, because just as any respectable person, I am perfectly fine with mirrors, and Exodus is a bad match. Alpharius is a bad matchup for me. So I'm like, okay, let's forget about that first game. Let that not go to my mind, and see what we can do here. This is a matchup I've been looking forward to, because I consider myself amongst maybe the top 5 best Ahriman players in the game, and Vapix is probably the top 1. So I was like, okay, this is time for a challenge. Can I take his crown, you know? And we'll see how that goes. So here he has very, very good opening hand, abundant supplies and supply lines, and that's excellent for him. You don't do much in the early game with Ahriman, so the best thing you can do is just draw through your deck and try and get these energy manipulation cards. So here, unfortunately, I didn't have no Martial, no abundant supplies in my hand, so I only could play Command Bridge. That was the only card I had, and that's really bad for me, because Command Bridge is the card you want to save for later on during the game, when you can actually play that to fish for the exact response to what your opponent is doing. You don't want to do that in the early game most of the times. So yeah, I played it, hoping I could get a supply lines maybe, but I wasn't able to find it, so I had to satisfy myself with that abundant supplies. So here he has played 1 abundant supplies and 1 supply lines, and I haven't done anything, basically. I have just played 1 abundant supplies, which was a good discount. Okay, I'm gonna pause here for a bit, because my options here were like, I think there was abundant supplies, Malgato Ambassador, and Make Chikabola. I'm not entirely sure of that. But anyway, no matter what options I was proposed, Malgato is probably the best. And why is that so is because this matchup is all about tempo. It's all about putting something big that your opponent won't be able to answer. And Mortar is one of these things, so I needed to answer it. And since his hand is still full, I mean it's reasonably, of a reasonable size anyway, I was like, okay, he will have something to play each and every turn, so bouncing back that Mortar into his hand is almost as good as removing it. I mean, it's removal, but it's almost as good as destroying it, so I decided to go for that. Even though it's just a 2 energy discount on the Patterns of Fate, it doesn't matter too much. So we go for that, and then he gets his first Ashen Blow, and Ashen Blow is probably the best card in the matchup. Now I'm gonna pause for a second too, because my hand was full of crap. There wasn't anything good in my hand, apart from Doombringer. Ashen Blow is also a reasonable option here, and Pencil Dust is... no, Pencil Dust is worst. But, I mean, Doombringer is by far the best, because it's something more I will have to answer. Ashen Blow is also reasonable, but Pencil Dust is bad, and all my other cards are trash. I think there was a Skitari Protector, and I can't remember just exactly what else there was in my hand, but like it was not some heavy late games, despite me not being able to play anything in the first turns. That was very unlucky. There was just this one Doombringer. So go for that, of course, because it's the best option. He also has the Ashen Blow to deal with it, and he knows, of course, that I will be able to play Ashen Blow on that Doombringer. But in Ahriman decks, there are no Book of Magnus, so there are only 2 Ashen Blows you need to tank, and once those are gone, they're gone forever. So there is no problem with drawing 1 Ashen Blow towards your Doombringer. I mean, for your Doombringer being a decoy for that Ashen Blow. So yeah, I still play Paint in Dust. I know he has Malgato in hand, of course, but there isn't much better I can do. So I'm just gonna going for, okay, do your best turn, Malgato and Doombringer. I know you're gonna do that. I mean, I hope you're not gonna put down Doombringer, but if you have it, then so be it. And there I have the Ashen Blow for his Doombringer, and I can Phase Bash into his Ruin. Before that, I decide to protect my thing, and that is because at that point I didn't have any other Psychic Power in my hand. So I was thinking, well, if he has Encto and wants to get rid of my Mortar with his Encto, no, he can't. He's forced to play 1 Ashen Blow. And that's 1 Ashen Blow less. As I said, there are only 2 units you need to tank before you're free and before they're gone. So okay, that was the first Ashen Blow, and I didn't really care about the Psychic Power I had left. I mean, I didn't have any good ways of using it. And here, I'm at 19, he has a Mortar in play, my hand is full of bad stuff, but this is where the tempo starts to swing. He decides not to protect his thing, which is questionable, but like it's his decision. He also has one other Ashen Blow in his hand, and he's hoping that if he draws another Psychic Power, he can play them both during the game. And that's exactly what happens. So he has, I mean, how to say that? Yes, so his idea proved to be right. Here goes for the Phase Bash, hoping for the first 50-50 to succeed. It fails, but I still have half of its HP. I'm still in a very bad spot. Now he decides to protect his thing, because the turn before I could have Encto, I could not have it. No, there is a 1 in 2 chance that I actually have a 4 point of damage being able to swing into that. Alright, so with the Psychic Energy stored, he was able to get rid of my Hydra, which was very good for him, and I was like, okay, he did have the 2 Ashen Blows after having an excellent early game. And here I'm very, very far behind. But I'm like, okay, maybe it's not lost. And Encto is excellent for him because it will help him close up the games. So here I have the Speeder, and I play down Pain to Dust, and I'm like, okay, I am at 9 health, because I'm gonna Phase Bash into that Mortar, of course, and I need to survive now, and to get that Pain to Dust healing machine getting ready. So I pay my counter-attack here, because otherwise 1 Uncto is enough to kill me. And now he top decks Uzi. And Uzi is also excellent in this matchup. It does exactly what Ashen Blow does, which is getting rid of something and putting a threat onto the board. So Ashen Blow, you need another card to put a threat onto the board, obviously, but you still can do it in the same turn, because the two resources cards are using are different, and that's the strength of Ahriman and of Magnus too. So yeah, he goes for that Uzi, and I'm like, that's bad, please stop doing that to me. And now that's very good for him. He goes for the healing of his Pain to Dust, and he doesn't heal his face. So now I know that he has at least one Astral Warfare in his hand. I know that for sure, because both Ashen Blows are gone, and there are no other reason why he would save up his energy. So I'm like, okay, all I need to do is hold on. I need to get my health pool as high as possible. And that's exactly what I do. I had a very good hand here. The Mecha Trick Ball to deny some attacks. The 2-2 to heal me by Alpharius, and that too. I know here comes another very interesting turn. Oh yeah, also I had the Uncto to perfectly answer that Uzi, but Ashen Blow will have also been fine. If I had my Astral Warfare here, it would have been excellent, because as you know, I still have my Doombringer in my hand, so I could have had a very, very decent clean with Astral Warfare and Doombringer. That's the best clean in the entire game, basically, and I didn't have it. Now I tap deck the Astral Warfare, one turn late, okay, and I was fortunate enough to kill that Pain to Dust. And here, let me just pause for a second. He didn't do anything the turn before. He just played 1 Pi Alpha. If he had anything to play, he would have played it, right? So I'm like, okay, his hand must be at least one Astral Warfare on one Uncto. And there's probably another Uncto, just because if he had anything else in hand, he would have played it instead of his Pi Alpha. So I'm like, okay, I need to not die this turn, and then I can with my Doombringer. I know his hand is running dry, and that I just need to hold on for a couple more turns. So I heal once again, and here I go for Izaka Or. And why do I do that? Is because I think that his third card is actually another Uncto and another Astral Warfare. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna take double Uncto and Astral Warfare next turn, and I need him to not be able to add this too much damage of face bashing. And if this Astral Warfare had hit for 3, then I would have been perfectly correct about that. And also the reason why I chose not to face bash, of course, for that exact reason, because 2 HP would have been, these 2 HP are critical to me, and in my hand, remember, there's still this Doombringer. So I play it at last, the thing that that allowed him to go for Doombringer on turn 5 alongside the Melgato, whereas I just copied the Melgato with my Point of Fate. And since the game is gonna be over by 2 turns, I decide not to do anything. And here, it's also interesting. Why do I decide to not face bash? Well, there are 2 reasons for that. First one is, I was thinking that his last card will be Uncto and not Astral Warfare. Why was that so? It was because the Jukebox Starlight copied an Uncto. And I was like, okay, maybe so there is another one in his deck. And I was like, okay, if he top decks the other Uncto, I'm dead now. And the other reason was, well, if it's Astral Warfare, and he top decks Izaka Or, which I'm sure he plays, then he can just set up lethal with Face Bash, and next turn he has 7 with Or and Face Bash. So if I am 2 HP down, it's a guaranteed 2-turn lethal for him, and I can't do anything about that. So the last card in my hand is Forbidden Protocols, and I'm like, that should be enough, right, for the next turn. With the Face Bash if he doesn't do anything. But I wasn't aware that he was playing Area, and that's the one on any top decks that punishes me here. Because now he goes for Area, which is, by the way, probably the only way out yet. I mean, Izaka will buy him a turn, but then he would still need another top deck to close up the game. And I'm like, okay, so my protocol could give me 4 points of attack. That's why I played the Melgato. It's for that 1 extra point of damage. And it's only 3. So that's not quite enough. That's 1 off. His area is precog, so I can't kill it. If I could, I would have. And then it all comes down to this final mortar shot. And this mortar shot misses. So that game goes to him. He's 1 health. He's at 1 health. I mean, it all came down to one mortar shot, so the most basic 50-50 you can think of, and it goes his way. So it was a very intense match, one I loved playing. I was mouthing, of course, at that time, at that moment, but rewatching it, I'm like, okay, he did have an excellent opening hand, and mine was terrible, but then I had good draws to mitigate that, to compensate for that. And then, alright. So here, yeah, this is the last matchup. Well, one last thing. I would have been crazy mad if such a thing had happened to me against a player less good than Vapix, or I mean against a bad player, because most players are less good, are worse than Vapix in the game. But I'm against Ahriman's #1 player in the world, so having such a result, having him win only by the skin of the tooth, it's perfectly understandable. It's perfectly fine with me. I'm counting on my teammates, and I also know that this one last matchup is a free win. So that's the good point about that. Since he's forced to play for Alpharius, I can safely go for Vulkan, which is an excellent matchup for me. If I had won with the Ahriman, then I would have had to make a choice. It would have been a 50-50. Either I go for my Exodus, which is 50-50 against in both matchups, or I go for my Vulkan, who is almost 100% against Alpharius and 0% against Ahriman. So I decided to go for that. Small misplay from me here, quite a mispositioning of my 2-2s. I should have put them on the same side of my warlord, so that my chaplain could have gave back survival to both. But one small mistake. I was mouthing about the previous game, and yeah, my bad. Okay, so here's the reason why this matchup is so good for me. Firstly, I'm 45 HP, so it's very hard for me to take me to. It's very hard for him, to take me down. And second, my stuff is just a pain for him to deal with. Eventually, he's gonna run out of stuns, and I will be able to bring that damage. Yes, so goes for the Barge of Onatov. One of green, which is good, but not quite good enough, because the 3 others are terrible. They are terrible. But anyway, I can kill the Green, and I am adding Duke Mortarshare on the board, who is also excellent, because it's a very healthy troop, so Alpha Legion has no hard removals, and they will rely on stuns, but they can stun my things forever. And it's very hard for Alpharius to just build in the damage towards a Vulkan. I want to see exactly how that matters. Also, I had a very good opening hand, I have to say, having the drilling site, having the Vulkan squad, having the Duke Mortarshare, the Ambassador Malgator. These are all excellent options. The reason why I decided to bounce that bunker back into his hand is I have him discard a card. Burn a card, sorry. So yeah, head on the squad is gone. Obviously, I can't know that when I'm playing the game, but it's very good news for me. First star ring goes. I only have 6 cards in hand. That was thanks to the drilling site, so he's forced to kill the Duke Mortarshare. But again, if my hand was bigger, everything would have died here. She would still have a 3-1, but I would still be on 35. I mean, like, maybe only 30 health. Doesn't matter. So the first ring is gone, and I'm still at 35 HP, which is excellent for me. Like, who is not gonna kill me? He's not gonna kill me ever. I guess one of the only options he has to win this game is make me fatigue, going all the way up to deck emptiness, and then maybe try and kill me with that. But even then, it's not guaranteed to win, because I can juggle with my survival, with my reckoning, and so on. So yeah. So the second ring is gone, and now I'm still at 30 HP. And I go for the Emperor's Wrath. And here is the attack ability, and I got the 2 best authorities in the game at a 4 cost. So yeah, also very good to have that in my hand. And the game's pretty much over at that point. I have board control, he won't be able to put in any damage with his Astartes at that point. I mean, if he plays Otilon's Khârn just now, he can surely deal some damage to me, but I have Last Rifles and Ashen Blows in my hand at that point, so even that, he wouldn't be able to deal any damage with that thing to me. So I'm feeling very, very confident here. Maybe another option he could have gone for was going for full traps. He could possibly have taken his deck and like change completely his list and go for a full trap build, because Vulkan is actually weak to traps. It's very hard for him to kill Alpharius before the deck just runs out of cards and you die to fatigue. So he could have gone for that, he decided not to. I think he was playing on his phone at work, so he didn't have quite the time to do that. And yeah, it's always tough to find a good moment to play. He lives in Australia, I live in France, completely different time zones, but well, that's what it is. So goes for another one of minis, goes for the Alpharius, so he decides not to go all in on traps. It probably wouldn't have been enough whatsoever with no infiltration in his deck. And I can only thank him for not playing a trap deck. It could have been right, could have been correct. But anyway, that is something I might do in the future if I am facing anything. If I'm facing something very, very slow and I'm sure he's gonna play it with my Exodus, I might actually go for that. I will need to give this thing a try. Okay, so here are supply lines. There are still one Hydra and Iron in my deck and this Ancient Dark Lair, and I'm starting to deliver the final blows. Yeah, the final blows, because there will be many. The game isn't over yet, because he's not dead. It's over because I won already. There's nothing more he can do. He's out of our rings. He still have a couple stands, but my hand is below the critical 6 card threshold. So he can stun me with his Fortune's Veterans. He can't hide his Headhunter squads. So yeah, not much he can do. He decides to go to send that another Thunderhawk to the face because he needs to kill me at some point. But this 4 points of damage aren't gonna matter. Kinda think he was playing suboptimally here, but like, even if he were, there was no way out of his game for him now. So it doesn't really matter. He just buy himself some more time. Alright, and nothing else to do here, so I just go for Oracle because I can do anything more. There is one anti-stealth in my deck. I didn't have it there. Playing that. Maybe I shouldn't have, but I'm like, okay, if he makes me draw a card, then he can give him a stun on his Fortune's Veteran, so I'm just gonna play it right now and see. So here I'm still at 5 cards in hand, he can stun me. I see now that there are Fruit Seekers in his deck, so if that thing had hit the board early in the game, potentially he could have built up the damage to kill me. I say potentially because I have one anti-stealth in this deck, and I guess I will keep it in this matchup, because that's the reason why I put it in the deck, basically. So yeah, I would have kept it. I didn't have it in my hand, but I would have played it on the Seekers if I had it. So yeah, he didn't have the Seekers, I didn't have the anti-stealth. We could both have our card, and it wouldn't have changed anything. Sleeper Operative, not gonna do anything. And this game is gonna be over next turn. As you will see, he heals, but I still have enough damage. My world stand, but like I have 6 and 3, 9 and 2, 11 and 5, 16 and 2, 18. So the only thing I'm scared of is maybe I can do a trap, and then another trap, and then a stun, and then crazy shit happens, just like crazy shit has happened in the previous games. So I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna stun that, jam that, sorry, and then the moment I draw a card, I'll deliver the killing blow. So at least one match goes for me. That's 3 points for France, and I'm glad about it, because Khârn won his game 2-1, so it's 6-3 for France, and then there was only Arsenal that was left to play. And I will let you guys go and watch the video I made with Autumnal about his games, I did an in-depth analysis of his games against Fulgrim. This best of 3 was also crazy. That's often what happens when two great players face each other with two great lineups, and the lineups are balanced, which means there are no tremendously good matchups. There was no one-sided matches during that best of 3s, and there was no one-sided match during Autumnal's best of 3. So please consider checking that out. Please also consider leaving a like. Why not subscribe? Thank you guys for watching. I'll be back soon with some more coverage of that amazing World Cup. Have a good one.